Okay, so in Second Nephi chapter 28, it talks about the humble followers of Christ who would be few in number, but that they would have many things which were wrong among them. The doctrines and traditions of men mingled with Scripture. So, and that's talking about the Latter Day Saints, the Latter Day Saints, or the people, the saints of the Restoration. It doesn't matter what church you're in. All of these churches, even the fundamentalist churches, the Josephite churches out in the Prairie Saints, the Mountain Saints, or the Brighamites, like they're all out of the way, every single one of them. So there has to be a setting in order, which um, starts partly with somebody like myself being taught by the Father. Um, I just got onto I-15 in Spanish Fork. Anyway, God, there's like different phases of the redemption of Zion, and it started in the 90s with the Father revealing to me who I am. In part, He didn't reveal to me fully who I am until January of 2013, but in 1995, He did reveal to me partly who I am, which was very confusing because I was actually an anti-Mormon Baptist at the time, and I did not believe Joseph Smith was a true prophet or that the Book of Mormon was true. I had left the church because I was baptized in 1986, um, but um, I believed the lies of the anti-Mormons and all of the anti-Mormon crap, and God brought me back into the fold in 1996. But in 1995, while I was Baptist, He took me up in the Spirit, like, did not realize this was going to happen until it was happening, and He brought me to the Salt Lake Temple, and He told me Jesus Christ brought me to Him in the middle tower on the east side of the Salt Lake Tower, Salt Lake Temple, and I'm just paying attention to traffic. Anyway, brought me into the middle tower on the east side under the Angel Moroni, where there is a Holy of Holies. And it's not on any of the diagrams, but I've been in that place. And actually, L. Tom Perry came and interviewed me when I wrote Gordon B. Hinckley a letter about it. L. Tom Perry came and interviewed me about it. He slapped me on the back and he says, "Well, God's the one that chooses his prophets, because we sure don't." That was in 2004. I didn't really quite understand what he meant. I do now. And then it was in 2013 that the Father revealed to me fully who I am, who I was before I came here, and all of that fun stuff. Anyway, but there has to be a teaching period, and the sifting that Heber C. Kimball and J. Golden Kimball talked about is a sifting of um, through knowledge, basically, because Isaiah chapter 49 talks about how the one mighty and strong are not the one mighty and strong, the Davidic servant, the same person, um, like he's rejected by his people. Moroni talks about that too, and um, that God will give him another people, but he's sad because his people that he sent to reject him. Kind of like, Samuel the Lamanite or Benadi was sent, from outside of the church structure. And, well, especially with the Benadi, he's rejected by his people for the most part. Nephi, or was it Alma? Alma, the elder, was like, I think I think Abinadi was a true prophet, you know. And it's interesting because Alma then goes and baptizes people with church priesthood, like teachers, deacons, whatever, in the waters of Mormon. Well, that's because they were part of a church that was in apostasy, but they still had the priesthood among them. That's why Alma didn't have to go get the priesthood to start baptizing people, because he already had it. So, and then Samuel the Lamanite, he's sent to the people, and the leader of the church is Nephi, you know, and he doesn't even write these things down until after Jesus Christ comes, and Jesus is like, "Why didn't you write down the words of Samuel the Lamanite, my prophet?" And Nephi's like, "Oh, let me get to that," you know. So the church doesn't always accept true prophets when they come among the people. In fact, they rarely do. Especially when God is trying to set them in order. He doesn't always set them in order through the leadership of the church. In fact, most of the time he sets them in order outside of the church by sending them prophets from without, um, to warn the people and to teach the people. So I was once one of you, and I'm not anymore. I was excommunicated for apostasy because, oh my gosh, I was supposed to stop this video a minute ago. Get on to the next part, but here we go. I'm just talk about this now. So in 2012, God commanded me and my wife on or around June 1st of 2012 to marry each other. We both accepted that. We started to get to know each other. We didn't really know each other very well, and we had never met in person. We only knew each other through LDS Singles, which was a dating website that has a chat function, and we talked and chat and whatever, and privately, and even texted a little bit, but neither one of us were interested in getting married or even looking for anybody. You know, like I lived in Florida, and there isn't a lot of people my age down there who are LDS, so I used it as a way just to talk to other people, you know. Um, and her bishop asked her to go on there because she was mean to men, but he was like, "Can you please just go on there and like talk to people?" Because there wasn't a lot of people her age either in upstate New Hampshire where she lived. Anyway, so we got to know each other a little bit, but not very well. Anyway, so then on June 1st, God tells us to marry each other, and we're like, okay. And there's more to this story. I'm not going to get into the whole thing because, like, whatever. Anyway, so then I flew up to meet her. Uh, I flew up to Vermont. She came and picked me up, and I met her and her two kids. And 20 days later, we were married, which really freaked her mom and her stepdad out. And they did everything that they could do to try to get her to like change her mind because she was marrying a stranger, and how dare, and like whatever. Anyway, so then we get married. I move um, up from Florida up to upstate New Hampshire in a little town called Littleton, I believe it was, by Franconia. Go look at a map. Anyway, her mother told the stake president about my experiences that I did not share with people, but I did share it with my wife, you know, and she had a very powerful, strong witness of the Spirit that those things which I shared to her with her were true. And she told her mother about those things and about some of the things I believed in. And she went to the stake president to report me you know, that her daughter is being deceived by this charlatan who, like, got her to marry him and whatever. So then the stake president calls, his secretary calls, gets a meeting with me. I go flipping 4 hours away in Vermont, Burlington or Montpelier or something. I can't remember. I always forget the names of those places. Anyway, so I'd never met him before. He asks me about those experiences, and I was like, yeah, I have had those experiences. And I was pretty sure what he was going to ask about, so I brought some evidence, and um, he was very angry. He's like, no, the prophet of the church is the only one that can have those kind of experiences, and you're a bald-faced liar. And I was like, look, L. Tom Perry came to interview me, and he brought copies of the letter that I sent to Gordon B. Hinckley, um, which they have in the church archives. And there's two different archive numbers. One of them is for the general vault, and one of them is for the first presidency vault. And you can see the date on it, office of the first presidency, all of that. L. Tom Perry knows who I am. Um, Gordon B. Hinckley knew who I was. Like a lot of these guys at that time, I've met. I've met Dallin H. Oaks. I used to go to church with him. You know, I used to go to church with Gordon B. Hinckley. I was married to Gordon B. Hinckley's great niece, and we used to go to the Joseph Smith Memorial Building to church there after we'd go to music and the spoken word. And my grandparents were friends with Gordon B. Hinckley and Marjorie Hinckley and N. Eldon Tanner and Bruce R. McConkie and all these people. So they know who I am. All right. And L. Tom Perry came to personally interview me about the letter that I had sent them about my 1995 experience. And like I said, he slapped me on the back. The last thing he said to me is he slaps me on the back with this big cheesy grin on his face. And by the way, that man is a big man. I always look at him and I think used car salesman, but like a cheesy grin. But I love him, you know. Like I'd see him at Temple Square sometimes. I'd be like, "Hey, Elder Perry," and he'd say, "Hi, how you doing today?" And whatever. They know me. All right. I have this evidence, and I said all you have to do is get a hold of L. Tom Perry, and he will tell you who I am. You know, and I didn't know, and they didn't know exactly who I was, but they knew I'd had these experiences. And but he didn't do that. You know, the stake president, you're a bald-faced liar. Anyway, so they kicked me out of the church for apostasy because nobody can have those kind of experiences except for the prophet of the church or the quorum of the 12 apostles. Even though Joseph Smith talked about like we can all have those kind of experiences, even though God says he's no respecter of persons. Anyway, whatever. So I got excommunicated, got my letter in January of 2013. Actually, I was excommunicated in January of 2013, and I got my letter that I had been severed from the church for apostasy and blah, 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 and wasn't even able to go to the trial. At the time, I was a truck driver out of Hartford, Connecticut for FedEx Ground, and I was running team, pulling doubles usually, sometimes singles, and I was also well, at that time, I was pulling doubles, running team, 48 states, and they'd given us a load to Rialto, California, which isn't that big of a deal. We had every weekend off. We get to Rialto, California, and back up to Connecticut, you know, and then take a day or two off or whatever it was. So anyway, but we got this load to Rialto. They sent us from Rialto, California, up to Salt Lake City, to North Salt Lake. And we came into Salt Lake and barely made it because there were two named blizzards. And I-80 was closed. And we couldn't go anywhere. We were stuck. And I called the stake president, and I'm like, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it to this this meeting, the court of love, where the stake president is, red-faced angry about how dare I be a bold-faced liar, wouldn't even check, or investigate even a little bit. Anyway, and they said it doesn't matter if you're here, you're going to be excommunicated anyway, you know. And so I couldn't make it back to my own trial, wasn't able to be there. I wanted to be there, but whatever. And that's when I broke down and I was crying on my knees. Well, I wasn't on my knees. I was crying though, and I was like, why is this happening to me? Like, I'm doing everything that you've asked me to do. I'm trying to be obedient. I'm not going to reject my experiences, because they gave me this, like, oh, if you just confess that you are not, or that you never had these experiences, and that you're a liar and a deceiver, then we'll work with you. But like Joseph Smith said, everybody can reject whatever, but I know that these things have happened, and who am I to deny God? I reject my experiences to gain favor with men. No, thank you. Anyway, and maybe it was a test for me. Whatever. So anyway, but I will not deny what God has told me. But you know what? I wasn't even sharing this with people at the time. I wasn't talking openly about these things. I'd kept a lot of stuff really quiet. And, but my wife knew, and so my mother-in-law, who did not like me and thought that I was whatever, she turns me into the stake president. I get excommunicated, and I'm like, God, what is going on here? And he came to me in the spirit, so I didn't see him, but I heard his voice in my ears. And he said, kneel down before me and ask me who you are. And I was shocked. I was like, oh. And I'm crying, and I'm like, Heavenly Father, who am I? And he took me up in the spirit, and he showed me exactly who I am. And then he told me to be bold with my message and my witness, and to teach the people what I have taught, or what he has taught me. And so I started doing that. And that's what I have done. I got my marching orders. I've gotten a bunch of written revelations that he's given me to instruct me on what to do and how to do it. And also unwritten revelations. And I'm trying to be obedient. That I lost my membership in the church. And then L. Tom Perry, the next conference, he's completely perfectly fine, no problem, gives his conference talk, and then 30 days later, he's dead with cancer that is the easiest type of cancer to treat. I have my questions about his death. And Gordon B. Hinckley died before that, and so, whatever. Anyway, but what's interesting? Wow, long tangents. What's interesting is that after we had moved to Utah, because the father brought us out here from New Hampshire, we lived in Spanish Fork, and they have a file on me. And the bishop there told me about the file, but the stake president had received written instructions from Thomas Monson to allow me to speak in church. He said, don't let him pray like a sacrament, and don't, what was the other thing? I can't remember, but basically just leave me alone. And so it's kind of funny. So the stake president there got this, his marching orders on how to handle me. And by the way, Thomas Monson also knows who I am. Actually dated his great niece too. I didn't know that she was related to him until she wanted to start dating me again, and I was already engaged to Rebecca, who is Gordon B. Hinckley's great niece. Anyway, doesn't matter. So, but like, so I still went to church, and like, I would talk in Sunday school and elders quorum, and they'd leave me alone, and everything was fine. And and everybody would be like, "Oh, I feel the Spirit so strong whenever you're teaching us," or teaching from the sidelines, not assigned to be the teacher, but I would talk a lot. And then they eventually would find out he's not a member. He was excommunicated. How come I feel the Spirit so strong then? Because the Spirit testifies of truth. Stop equating what the Spirit's teaching you when you're learning truth to, oh, this man must be holy. I am, but yeah, I was excommunicated for apostasy wrongly. So, and the Spirit does testify of truth, and if you want to know the man is from God, then you ask about the man. If you want to know what if the Spirit's testifying of the truth he's speaking, it doesn't mean that he's exactly 100%, but the truth that he's teaching is true. So, anyway, I had to get all that out. Let's get to the next part.
Laws of propagation are no exception. All living things must come forth by these reproductive laws and principles, each after its own kind. Every plant, insect, bird, animal and human follow these eternal laws of reproduction. The prophet Joseph Smith declared, God has made certain decrees which are fixed and immovable. For instance, the oak of the forest, the fruit of the tree, the herb of the field, all bear a sign that seed hath been planted there. For it is a decree of the Lord that every tree, plant, and herb bearing seed should bring forth of its kind, and cannot come forth after any other law or principle. TPJS, p. 198.
Okay, so this is Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith, and he's talking about the animals, and the birds, and the fish, and the plants, and the whatever. Okay, so God didn't, when He brought the animals here, He didn't create them out of nothing. There are animals all throughout the universe. There are plants all throughout the universe. There are habitable zones where planets exist in the celestial and terrestrial phases all throughout the universe. We are not so special that we are the only one. Jesus Christ's atonement was for this earth and this earth only, not for all of the universe. And all of the universe didn't have to wait until Jesus Christ atoned for the sins and transgressions of this particular fallen world. I know what's taught in the church now. It is incorrect. Each earth has a redeemer, but Jesus is not the redeemer of every earth. So anyway, but they brought the animals and the plants here from older earths or other earths. And how did they bring them here? They brought them here with the technology that they have. And I believe very strongly that the pyramids around the world are landing platforms, especially the one in Cairo, the Great Pyramid. I believe it's a landing platform for a massive ark, celestial ark, which brought the animals here from another earth. Michael chose which animals he wanted to bring here, and he brought them here, and he named them, and he put them where they go, and that's how that happened. And you know what? Maybe even after the flood, they loaded them up into another ark and put them throughout the continents. I don't know, but the ark that came here brought the animals and the plants to seed this earth, but also to put the animals here that he wanted here. And maybe they put other animals here before they decided to bring Adam here. I'm not sure about that either. Maybe 6,000 years ago, Um, before, um, hold on here. Before Adam was brought here and placed in the garden, they had to send a big old asteroid down here to smack the planet and kill off all the animals that were here. Uh, Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. I don't know. It doesn't matter though. But the plants and the animals which we see all around us, their species or their kinds are ancient. And you see micro evolution within the kinds, but you do not see macro evolution from things like apes and gorillas and humans or whatever, Neanderthals. And I don't know how all of that works, but it doesn't matter. Some of you think it does. And you know what? If you really think it does, then you need to study these things out to the best of your ability and find out what the truth of it is. And take what you believe to the Father and find out if you get a confirmation of the Spirit, or if the Spirit withdraws from you, or if you don't get any answer at all, maybe you just need to keep on studying and try to look at everything with an open mind and look at all sides of whatever. Because I'm telling you this right now. In the scriptures it says, be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware. And it is true that there are good angels on this planet with bodies, resurrected beings, like even before the resurrection, the angels that came with Jehovah, where they had that meal of meat and dairy, where Jehovah had a body before the resurrection, while Jesus Christ was still a spirit waiting to come to this earth to do what he was foreordained to do. Those angels had bodies. The noble and great ones who were souls in the pre-existence, they had bodies. There are fallen angels on this earth too, and they are manipulative. And as well as the spiritual demons and Satan, who is a spiritual head of the demons, he is perdition himself for this earth. Um, you know, like they influence people to tell you lies. Did you know that the man who started the Smithsonian was from Palmyra, New York, during the time when Joseph Smith was alive? They have covered up the true history of this earth, and they teach you lies because they are not. They're weak-minded people that are influenced by demons. You can be a very smart person and still be weak-minded spiritually. So, but there are also fallen angels on this earth that have bodies, and a lot of you have seen them on the TV. You've heard them singing. They're in Hollywood. They're in the music industry. They're politicians, and they don't die. They're stuck down here, and they've been here for a long damn time. Elon Musk was Warner von Braun. Excuse me. Tom Cruise. I can't remember who he was. Like Donald Trump is one of them. He was Elvis Presley. I know you're all thinking, oh, you're crazy. Just telling you, he is the great deceiver, by the way. Like, I like a lot of what he did, but I never trusted him because before he came out in 2016, he was always a Democrat. And then all of a sudden he switches his roles and he decides he's gonna become the president of the United States and feeds us all a bunch of stuff. And you know what? He did a lot of things which I believe were good, and I agreed with it. A lot of his policies, not everything. His red light laws, gun control, not good, not good. But and Joe Biden, God, I they do age, but they drink uh, certain hormones that they get from. So we've got this massive epidemic of people who have been like they're kidnapped and they're never seen again. Usually young adults, um, teenagers, but tons of children. Look up the statistics on that. Never seen of again. These trade these human trafficking rings. What they do is they terrify, especially these kids. They will terrify them, and this hormone will be released in the blood, and then they take the blood and they take the hormone out of the blood and they use that to rejuvenate their bodies. You know, if they don't do that, they will continue to age and they'll get decrepit, but they won't die. They don't die. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels, even fallen angels unaware. You know, Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman, Jim Carrey. In fact, if you go look, Keanu Reeves supposedly played this movie that just came out where he's an angel or whatever. Go look at old Keanu Reeves and pay attention to his nose. And then go and look at new Keanu Reeves, and his nose is going to be different. And if you look at Jim Carrey, it's Jim Carrey's nose. But it's not just that. Like, they've got marks and stuff on their faces, scars, moles, freckles, whatever. And you look at Jim Carrey and you look at Keanu Reeves, and they got the same nose, they got the same structure in their face, they've got the same hairline, they've got the same freckles, the same scars, the same moles, because Keanu Reeves decided he wanted to play a different role, and he left that open, and Keanu Reeves is now portraying somebody else, and Jim Carrey wanted to step in that role and do some stuff as Keanu Reeves. Like, you live in a world of deception. Great, great deception. Gross darkness will cover the earth and the minds of the people. Scripture. But you don't know how dark it is, and you don't know what kind of bondage you're in, and what deceptions that you believe. I mean, if you're interested, there is a YouTube account called Fittest Flat Earther on YouTube. Go check him out and go through his videos. Now, do I believe we live on a flat earth? No, I don't. He does, whatever. I'm not interested in that part of what he talks about, but the fallen angels and the face similarities where he matches up these individuals and shows Donald Trump has the same scars and the same basic structure of his face as Elvis Presley. And you know what? They go from role to role, and they'll do minor alterations, cosmetic alterations, to change their face a little bit. But like, you can't get rid of some of these scars. You can get rid of the moles, but it leaves a scar behind, you know. And when you have like 4 or 5 same scars, moles, freckles, or scars where a mole once was, and the person has the same bone structure, the probability that they're just lookalikes is 1 in a trillion, I think, or 1 in 2 trillion. It's ridiculously low. So And none of this really matters for the redemption of Zion. It's just there is things out there that you've never even considered before. And now that we have um, like motion pictures and TV and all of this stuff, and we've got facial recognition software and the internet and all this stuff, they can't hide in the shadows like they used to hide in the shadows. And some of them, like there's pictures of them, Eddie Murphy, uh, Warner Von Braun, or the guy who runs Facebook. What's his face? I can't remember his name right now. Anyway, like there is pictures and artist renditions of them back before there was pictures of the same individuals. Dinkler, like I think his name's Henley Dinkler. You know, like these people that die, like you know, in these tragic, they have to kill, they have to make their character. Chris Farley, for instance, he's not dead. He just took on a new role. So his character died, and they're all characters, whether or not you think that that's their real names. He just takes on a different role. But these people are individuals who are trapped on the earth, who have been sent down. They lost their ability of movement, which the angels have, and they look like humans on the earth. And if they don't drink this certain substance, which I cannot talk about on this video because I'll get banned, because they do cover these things up. They call it the golden juice. They can recover. Their bodies can grow younger. Depends on how much they drink. And it's all off of the life force of these little children and these teenagers and young adults that they take. And it's not all about sex trafficking. It is about giving them the supply that they need in order to take this substance so that their bodies will either stop aging or reverse age, where they actually can grow younger, you know, and they can grow older too. They just don't grow like we do because they're not mortals. So anyway, yeah, it's a crazy world that we live in. So anyway, I'm gonna leave this. Heck, there might have to be a part 1.1, a part 1.2, a part 1.3, you know, for this particular page. This is page 154 that got me off on all of this stuff. But I hope that you enjoy it. And if you're closed-minded, that's fine. You're not going to believe anything that I say. And if you're open-minded, maybe this is a test. Are you going to believe me, or are you going to take it to the Father and find out if I am a true messenger? And just because I am a true messenger doesn't mean that everything that I'm talking about is right on the money. You have to go get your own revelation and not just follow a man who you know is a prophet. Some of you know that I am who I say that I am, but you can't just trust everything because a prophet told it to you. You can't just trust Joseph Smith because everything that he said, you trust it just because he was a prophet. You cannot ride through the pearly gates on the coattails of your favorite prophet. You gotta go get confirmation of the Spirit and revelation for yourself to know the truth of all things. And the Spirit will teach you the truth of all things. And maybe this was all just a bunch of satire. I don't believe any of these things. I don't believe that Donald Trump is Elvis Presley. It's all satire. It's just for your own entertainment and amusement. Go check out that flat Earth, fittest flat Earther guy. But yeah, don't just trust me because I say something. Go find out for yourself, please. God is no respecter of persons. He wants all of us to become prophets. And that I can tell you is true. And, well, I'm going to post this, and then we'll see how long it takes to get this second page, page 155 out. But I hope that you enjoy this at least. Take care, everyone. God bless. And God be with you till we meet again. Bye.